Good morning on this Monday, October 4th, 2021. Let it be known, we are bringing you again some great information about the W.E.B. Dubois Museum Foundation and the museum that's going up in Accra, Ghana, that's being reconstructed. It's a beautiful, beautiful site. We're going to talk again this morning with Professor Kwame Anthony Appiah and the museum's board foundation's executive director, Japhet Aryiku, this morning. But first, of course, the headlines. Police killings in the United States have been massively undercounted, according to a study by the University of Washington. The study was published this weekend in the Lancet, a peer-reviewed medical journal. Researchers compared data from the National Vital Statistics System Federal Database, or NVSS, alongside data from 3 groups tracking deaths in police custody and news reports. The study demonstrated the disproportionate impact of police killings on Black people in America. Last summer, after the May 25th killing of George Floyd by former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, there were protests in the streets around the U.S. The moment brought forward even more analysis over police violence. Over the last 5 years, several high-profile killings of African Americans in the U.S. have been caught on camera and forced legislatures to reevaluate policing policies. The study in part read that, quote, across all races and states in the USA, we estimate 30,800 deaths from police violence between 1980 and 2018. This represents 17,100 more deaths than reported by the NVSS. So we see more killings that went unreported. It's still going on today, folks, even post George Floyd, and something must be done. Also in the news this morning, and we'll talk more about that later. You can read more about that, I'm sorry, at blackpressusa.com and many of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's member newspapers across the country. The COVID-19 pandemic has reduced the lifespan of Black males by an average of 3 years and has robbed Hispanic men of about 2.5 years, according to the latest information from health officials. Black females have seen a more than 2-year reduction in their average lifespan, because of the pandemic. In contrast, Hispanic females fared better by losing slightly less than their African American peers. However, the life expectancy for white males and females decreased by over 1 year. The Kaiser Family Foundation puts that information together, and it noted that its vaccine monitor found that more than 7 in 10 U.S. adults, 72%, now report being at least partially vaccinated. According to the foundation's report, similar shares of Hispanic, 73%, and Black, 70%, and white, 71% adults now report having received at least 1 dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. That marks a change from earlier in the vaccination effort, when Black and Hispanic adults were much less likely to report being vaccinated than white adults, and reflecting other data that shows that people of color make up a disproportionate share of recent vaccinations. So we see the police shootings reducing the lifespan of African Americans. And now, of course, the COVID pandemic has also contributed to reducing the life expectancy of African Americans. Folks, again, the National Newspaper Publishers Association urges anyone who can to get vaccinated. And finally, in the news this morning, a group of Washington, D.C. power brokers exchanged handshakes, fist bumps, and elbow taps while some wrote sizable checks to Kasim Reed, making the race for Atlanta mayor a tale of two cities during a festive campaign fundraiser in the nation's capital. Emmy winner Clara Wilkinson, the founder of 1CRW Worldwide Incorporated and producer of the Chavis Chronicles on PBS TV, she hosted the event for Kasim Reed, who is a Howard University graduate who served as Atlanta's mayor for consecutive terms beginning in 2010. He stated his case for why voters should welcome him back for a third term. He also denounced the scandal that has threatened to scar his legacy from his last time in office. He has denied any wrongdoing. He says at the event, these people, his detractors, kept saying all these things about me. But a funny thing happened, Reed said. He says, every poll not tied to a candidate had me leading. And why? Because people know that they were better off 4 years ago than they are right now. The 52-year-old is seeking to replace Keisha Lance Bottoms, who announced that she wouldn't seek re-election in May. So the Atlanta mayor's race is hot and heavy, and folks will go to the polls on November the 2nd and choose the new mayor to succeed Keisha Lance Bottoms. And certainly Kasim Reed is hoping that that choice is his. So last Friday, folks, we brought you information. The Minister of Tourism for Ghana was on, and he talked about the W.E.B. Dubois Museum, that they have just signed an agreement recently in New York to continue work on it, to refurbish it, and to essentially modernize it. Well, today we have Professor Kwame Anthony Appiah, who is the board member of the W.E.B. Dubois Museum and the foundation, and Japhet Aryiku, the executive director of the W.E.B. Dubois Museum in Ghana. They both are joining us right now. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining the Black Press of America. It's just great to have you from Ghana. So let's just get started. Talk about the museum. It's been 7 years, Professor, in the making. Talk about those 7 years. How difficult was it to get the museum squared away where you could sign this agreement and move forward?
Well, it's taken time because the government of Ghana had to be persuaded that this group, and they didn't know us when we came to them in the first place, this group was the right group to help do this work. This is an important site. It belongs to the government of Ghana. It's the home of Dr. Dubois and Shirley Graham Dubois. They lived there for the last years of their life. I think a lot of people don't know that Dr. Dubois, when he died, was a Ghanaian citizen. Of course, he's the most famous African American intellectual ever, certainly of the 20th century. And when he died on the eve, actually, of the March on Washington, he was literally on the day before. He was a Ghanaian citizen, and he was working in Ghana on the Encyclopedia Africana project, which he had first conceived in the early 20th century, in the first decade of the 20th century, which was a project to bring the Black world together in the first major encyclopedia of the whole Black world, not just Africa, but the Caribbean, Latin America, North America, and the African diaspora around the world. And that was one of the first big projects of the Organization of African Unity, which was founded at that time under the leadership of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first president of Ghana, the leader to independence. So he's an important American, of course, an important Ghanaian for us, and an important link between the continent and the diaspora.
Yeah. And Professor, thanks for that. Before we move forward, let us first bring on the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Dr. Chavis, good morning.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Karen Carter Richards, our distinguished chair, representing 230 African-American owned newspapers all over the United States, we welcome our guests. And we certainly are also excited about the opening of the W.E.B. Du Bois Museum and enshrinement there in Accra. You definitely will have our support, and we plan to bring a delegation of the Black press to Ghana sometime in 2022 to help lift up to the world the importance of this center in W.E.B. Du Bois' name.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I should point out too that our guests this morning are in the United States, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Our guests last week were in Accra, and we appreciate that. Yeah. So so Japhet, lots of African Americans feel that since Dr. Du Bois was an African American and one of our most notable civil rights intellectuals, there should be African American involvement in the museum. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, certainly. By the way, you pronounce my name exactly the way that my father used to pronounce Japhet. I sort of I made it into Japhet, but my father used to call me Japhet, which is the right way. So thank you. No, certainly, within the Dubois Museum Foundation board, we have obviously Kwame Appiah, we have Henry Louis Gates on the board, and we have another professor by the name of Emmanuel Achiampong. So these are all African Americans, who are very much concerned about, the legacy of Du Bois, and are very much, in fact, they are the brains behind the effort to put this museum together. Now, in Ghana, there's an association of African American in Ghana. We consulted with them. In fact, they're celebrating their 30th anniversary at the end of this month. I'm hoping to be in Ghana and to join them. We consulted with them. They're also very excited about this project. So we do have a conglomeration of people of different races and ethnic background who are all very much interested in the legacy, restoring the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yeah, and there's also the African Diaspora Forum mission located on the W.E.B. Du Bois compound, headed by Ambassador Erica Bennett, an African American.
Yep.
The DAF is the world's only African diaspora mission with diplomatic status. I can't talk this morning. This diplomatic status sanctioned by His Excellency former President J.A. Kufuor in 2001. Since the Diaspora African Forum mission and the Garvey House are both located on the compound, were these entities involved in the design and creation of the initial agreement that allowed the foundation to take on this project?
Absolutely. I met a few times with Ambassador Bennett in Ghana. In fact, I'm still in communication with her. We talked about, and she was willing to help us move the negotiations forward. In fact, she even said something that was quite interesting. When I first met with her the second time, she called me. She said, Japhet, you do have some friends in very high places. I said, really? Because when we met with President Akufo-Addo in May of 2019 to present this idea to him in his office, there was a young lady in the diaspora group who was with us. The president called her back into his office. Whatever conversation they had, I wasn't privy to it. But then Ambassador Bennett told me that I wasn't there, but do you know that the president called Nadia back into the office? I said, yeah, I saw that. Well, the president told Nadia to work with you to make this thing happen. So, she just gave me that line. So you got some very good friends at very high places. So we're working with Ambassador Bennett, and we hope to continue to work with her. What we have done so far is that we have a conceptual design. It hasn't been finalized yet, but a conceptual design which was presented to the president. The next step now that we have signed the agreement, is to go back with the architect, Sir David Ajayi, to sort of consult the various stakeholders to come up with a final design which will involve all the stakeholders, all the people that have interest in the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yeah. Just to say, so David is the architect who designed the National Museum of African American History on the Mall in Washington. He's one of the world's great Black architects, and his family originates from Ghana, though he himself actually grew up partly in Tanzania because his parents were diplomats. But he's on board. He's a friend of ours. He's an enthusiast about this project, and he's done a lot of design work. But as you know, if you want to do a large building project, you have to get a lot of people on board. The Ghanaian authorities obviously have to approve the designs, and so on. So we have the conceptual design, which I think the president of Ghana, like us, thinks is a good design. We have a great architect, and we'll have to move forward with the help and assistance and advice of so many people, because so many people have a stake in this, a real emotional stake, a real intellectual stake, a real moral stake in this key site of the African diaspora. This is a key place in the history of the relations between the continent and, in the case of Dr. Du Bois, the diaspora in the United States. But of course, Marcus Garvey was, though he lived in the United States, was originally from the Caribbean. So this site is full of memory, full of significance for the African diaspora, and it needs to be refurbished, redeveloped, and made one of the central points of pilgrimage, I think, for people coming to the diaspora. The government of Ghana has a several year long now program inviting people from the diaspora back to Ghana, welcoming African Americans back to Africa, and this needs to be, one of the great sites of that. This is a site of great positive significance, and it ranks alongside the negative significance of the castles of the enslaving coast as one of the great significant sites in Ghana, in the world of the African diaspora.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it's obviously it sounds like a lot of pressure too to make this the world-class learning center that you want it to be. And with the president on board and even with the architect, that museum on the Mall in Washington, D.C. is so popular, but it costs so much money too. You guys have a certain budget in mind slated to build this complex. How much do you envision it's going to cost?
Well, I think the preliminary numbers that we got back in 2019 was between $15 to $20 million for the structure. And then we intend to spend several million to acquire more, artifacts of Dubois images and still images and all that into the museum. So, yeah, we're talking about a budget of about $20 to $25 million just to put it up. But then, as a continuing operation, every year we're going to have to raise money to keep it going and make sure that it lives and survives very well. Yeah. So about 20 million. Yeah.
And as a museum, it'll be sort of connected with other important, virtually connected as well, with other important archives of the life and work of Dr. Dubois, of which there are many. And we want to properly digitize the materials there so that they're not only available to people who come to the museum, but that they're available through the web. Because, that's the great thing about the present time. A museum is not just in one physical place. It's also can be a site of connection for people who frankly can't afford to get on a plane and go to Ghana. But we want it to be available to everybody. And to connect up all the sources of information about Dr. Dubois and Shirley Graham, his wife.
Yeah, and the NMPA's executive administrator, Claudette Perry, who's done a lot of work on the continent, certainly in Ghana, she's asking, will any of the funds be used to upgrade the entire compound, or is the focus only on the Dubois Center?
No, the entire compound is going to be redone. The entire compound. On our website, we have some rendering of what's going to look like. Again, these are conceptual designs, but suddenly the entire compound is going to be redone. And the most important, of course, is the bungalow, which is going to be, really restored into the way that it was when Dubois was there. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Chambers, I'm going to bring you into the conversation as well.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to salute our brothers for their great work, all the planning. You are practicing what W.E.B. Du Bois' vision entailed. Of all the African countries, he chose Ghana. Yes. And the reason why he chose Ghana was because of Kwame Nkrumah, as well as the legacy, of independence, of struggling against colonization and neo-colonization. And today, I think it's very timely in 2021, as we're getting ready to go into 2022, for the Du Bois Center to be a not just world-class facility in Ghana, but as our professor just said, through virtual and interlink and the internet, that people all over the world. And just let me say something about the African diaspora. Du Bois' vision, Du Bois is one of the founders of the NAACP.
Indeed.
And he expanded his vision, and he received a lot of criticism here in the United States, even sometimes by some African Americans who did not understand his global intellect. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a time for all of us to be re-educated, to deepen our knowledge of the leadership, of the courage, and of the vision, the global vision of W.E.B. Du Bois. So I think that this is going to be an exciting moment. I would just like for you both to comment on some of the challenges that we're facing here in America today with this debate about critical race theory. There are some people on the far right who don't want us to know anything about Africa, who don't want us to know anything about the transatlantic slave trade, who don't want us to even know anything about the legacy of W.E.B. Du Bois. Can you just talk a moment before we leave about the importance of truth, the importance of facts, the importance of science, and the role that Africa has played in giving science, truth, and facts to the rest of the world?
I mean, I think you're so right. And let's remember that Dr. Du Bois was present at the first Pan-African Congress in 1900.
Yes.
And he met Nkrumah at the fifth Pan-African Congress in 1945, where my father was also present as a member of the West African Students' Union. So this was a lifelong project of connecting Africa and the diaspora. And knowledge about that was was what actually brought Du Bois to Ghana, because it was as the editor of the Encyclopedia Africana, which Kwame Nkrumah got the Organization of African Unity to fund. It was as editor of that he was invited to Ghana. That's what he was doing when he died. He was developing. And Du Bois's whole life project was the project of bringing knowledge about people of African descent, starting with his Harvard PhD thesis, which was on the suppression of the African slave trade. Number one in the Harvard History Series, the first Harvard History Series ever to be published, history thesis ever to be published. And Souls of Black Folk, probably the most influential book about African American culture of the first half of the 20th century. I mean, this man was known around the world. There was once a national holiday in the name of Dr. Du Bois in China. He won the Lenin Prize in Moscow. Yes. And Dr. Nkrumah invited him to come to Ghana, not just to do this work, but if he wanted to be a Ghanaian. And as I said, he died as a Ghanaian citizen as well as an American. So this project of bringing an understanding of the history and achievements of people of African descent, of Black people, that was his life project. And whether it was in founding the NAACP, founding the Pan-African movement, editing the Crisis magazine, which was one of the most important Black publications of the, well, it's still around, but in the early 20th century, it was really one of the most important Black publications, which he edited, created, and wrote a lot for. Du Bois was a central figure in bringing knowledge about Black people to the world. So he's exactly the right person, I think, to be the standard against this ridiculous campaign against knowledge, which is which is couched in terms of hostility to critical race theory. But it's much more than that. It's hostility, as you said, Dr. Chavis. It's hostility to the truth. And yes. Du Bois was a great campaigner for truth as well as for justice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think James Wright, just going back, he asked a really good question here. He says a lot of Black youth don't know about Dr. Du Bois. He says, what about youth outreach? Can you talk about youth outreach that the museum project will include?
Absolutely. And I just like to say also that I first stumbled upon Dr. Du Bois in high school. I think I was about 13, 14 years old. I went to our school library. I picked up this book, Souls of Black Folk. It's a red-covered book. I couldn't really understand it, couldn't read it, but I was able to memorize the first paragraph, which is the problem with the 20th century is the problem with the color line. I mean, so several years later, I'm back into trying to restore the glory of Du Bois. I am so happy and so excited about this thing here. Now, when you go to Ghana right now, as we started our research, you ask people about have they been to the Du Bois Center. Sadly, they say, oh, yeah, I went there for a funeral or for a wedding, okay? So we have a lot of work to do, even educating the Ghanaian public about who Du Bois was, what the center stands for, and then we come to the diaspora. So We have a great program in terms of outreach. As Dr. Appiah said, we are going to have interactive institutions and schools and organizations all over the world. And we are going to have programs of lectures and series of panel discussions all year round. That's part of our programming that we're putting together. So it can be very exciting. And it's a lifelong project. We're not just going to put it up and then just forget about it. Put out buildings and then starting the programming of really letting the world know who Dr. Dubois was, his mission, and his vision of just coexistence, peaceful coexistence. And let's just, that's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, and needless to say, you both sound extremely enthusiastic about this, excited.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, for me, Du Bois is, I'm a professor. I have written about African and African American studies my whole career, and for me, Du Bois is the great figure. And just remember, this is a man who born in the 1860s, who was educated both in the United States and at the University of Berlin, which at that point was the greatest university in Europe, and triumphed everywhere he went. First at Fisk, and then with his second BA at Harvard, and then he didn't get the degree at the University of Berlin because he wasn't able to stay there long enough. But he wrote a thesis, and it was published in one of the great German academic journals. He then went back to Harvard because he didn't get the PhD in Berlin, and completed the work and got this PhD at Harvard, and wrote arguably the first great American statistical sociological study, the Philadelphia Negro, which she spent so many years on. I mean, so he's a towering intellect, towering American intellect, and a towering Black intellect as well. Arguably one of the founders of American sociology. Period. Not one of the Black founders, but just one of the founders of this field, and also just one of the great American writers. All around the country and the world, people study his writing and read his work, and he has this incredible, inspiring style, the style that got Japhet learning the first paragraph of the Cells of Black Folk by heart as a teenager. So yes, we should be bringing the news about him to young people, and young people of all races, frankly, and this should be a site of interest to people. It should be a World Heritage Site, in my view, and that's something that we will, of course, work on with the support of the government of Ghana. And I just want to say one thing about this. This is something we started with a different president, so under a different president. This is not a partisan issue. This is something that brings together Ghanaians of all political stripes. The previous president, would have been in support of it. It probably is in support of it, as actually would his predecessor have been, whom we've already mentioned, John Kufuor. So 3 presidents in a row of Ghana, different political parties, are in support of this project.
Well, that is fantastic to know that this is not it's a very partisan thing. It's non-partisan, I should say. That politics is not getting in the way of such an important structure, an important center. Professor Kwame Anthony Appiah and Japhet Aryiku, the executive director of the W.E.B. Du Bois Museum in Ghana. We really appreciate you guys. Dr. Chavis, your closing thoughts with the 2 gentlemen.
Well, I just want to let our colleagues know that we are equally excited and equally enthusiastic. And we're making arrangements right now for the Black Press of America to have a more strengthened relationship with the press of Ghana and with the press of Africa. We want a global Black press, which was also one of the visions of W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yes,
absolutely.
I just want to also put up that for those who are interested in learning more about our foundation, they can go onto our website and get some more information about our foundation.
Yes.
Very important. Yep.
So that's www.webdbmf.org. Yes. Absolutely. We appreciate that so much. And we appreciate all of you Nicole McDaniel says, I want to go there when it's done. So we got to get
She'll be
done.
welcome.
And don't forget to check out the NMPA and the Black Press of America on TikTok at NMPA Black Press. That's NMPA Black Press on TikTok. And let it be known, remember this, in the words of W.E.B. Dubois, the cost of liberty is less than the price of repression. Everybody have a great day. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Get vaccinated where you can. And we will see you tomorrow.